We were taught to believe that motivation is the key to changing your habits. Maybe if you really, really want it, then you'd actually do it. But in reality, what we're actually motivated to do is be lazy and do what's convenient. In this video, I'm going to be trying 13 healthy habits for a week, but instead of relying on motivation, I'm going to be building systems to help me stick to those habits and make it almost impossible to fall off track. But while I'm trying to build those healthy habits, I'm going to break down some simple strategies that are backed by science that you can use to actually build healthy habits that will stick and make it feel effortless. But tomorrow is officially day one, and I was thinking of starting it off with an extra challenge and getting up at 6 a.m. 6:30 a.m. I'm not ready for 6 a.m. yet. I usually get up at 7:30, so it will be exactly 1 hour before I usually get up, and I'm gonna get to the gym. I honestly don't know why I'm putting this extra pressure on myself, but this will be the earliest time I've ever been to the gym in my entire life. So I'm not a morning gym girly, if you didn't already know. Like, at all. It can be so easy to get overwhelmed trying to find the most optimal plan for change. Believe me, I've tried how to glow up in a week, the best workouts to build muscle, the perfect side hustle that might one day be able to become your main hustle. Sometimes we get so focused on figuring out the best approach that we never actually get round to taking action. And when we finally realize how long we've been stuck in this loop of research and inaction, it's already become a habit. One thing that really helped me break out of that cycle was reminding myself that any progress is good progress. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for the right time to make a change, but the truth is there will never be a right time. If you tell yourself that you'll commit to making the change after that big deadline's passed, once you've left school, or once you've finished the project you're working on, for most of us, when that time comes around, we start saying things like, I'm just too busy right now, or I have another deadline coming up soon, and we keep putting off change because we're motivated to keep doing what's familiar to us. Another habit that I actually started a couple of weeks ago was taking these mental performance shots to improve my productivity and focus. They're from Magic Mind, and they've made so much of a difference. So if you want to try them out, then I'll put a link in the description and you can get a discount. So good. You might think doing 13 different habits sounds extreme, and if I was starting them all at once, I would agree. But some of them I've already been doing for a while, like taking my supplements and getting sunlight first thing in the morning. But for this challenge, my aim is to put systems in place that will allow me to add in the new habits with the least resistance. The science behind how habits work is actually pretty intuitive, and Charles Duhigg summed it up pretty well in his book The Power of Habits by splitting up the process of building a habit into 4 simple steps: the cue, craving, response, and reward. So when we break down the forming of a habit into these 4 fundamental parts, it can help us understand what a habit is, how it works, and how to improve it. To form a new habit, your brain always repeats these steps in the same order. The cue triggers your brain to start a new behavior by predicting a reward. While early humans focused on cues for survival, modern cues are more tied to secondary rewards like money, status, or approval. Step 2 is the craving, and cravings drive habits by creating the desire to change your internal state. You don't crave the habit itself, but the outcome it provides, and this is usually things like relief, satisfaction, or pleasure. Step 3 is the response, and this is the habit itself, either a thought or action. It depends on your motivation and ability. If it requires too much effort or is beyond your capacity, then it just won't happen. The final step is the reward, and rewards satisfy the craving and teach your brain which actions are worth repeating, so they sort of close the feedback loop and reinforce the habit. If any of these steps are missing or aren't sufficient enough, then the habit won't form or it just won't last. When it comes down to it, the purpose of every habit is to solve some sort of problem. Sometimes that problem's that you notice something good and you want to get it, but other times the problem is that you're experiencing pain and you want to get rid of it. Either way, the things we do after that is used as an attempt to try and solve that problem. In his book Atomic Habits, James Clear splits these 4 steps into 2 phases, the problem phase and the solution phase. The problem phase includes the cue and the craving, and it's where you realize that something needs to change. But the solution phase includes the response and the reward, and that's where you take action to achieve the change that you wanted. In the problem phase, an example of the cue is you wake up, and the craving might be that you want to feel alert and awake. So in the solution phase, the response is you drink a cup of coffee, and the reward is you satisfy your craving to feel alert. Drinking coffee then becomes associated with you waking up, so the habit repeats. As a side note, if you do one thing after watching this video, I want it to be this. Go and listen to the book Atomic Habits, because it's honestly life-changing and you don't even have to read it. You can listen to it on Audible completely for free using the link in the description. That's what I did, and it's changed my life, you guys. I can't say much more than that. In the book, he takes the 4 steps of habit forming and puts them into a practical framework that we can use to design good habits and get rid of bad ones. He calls it the 4 laws of behavior change. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. And to break a bad habit, you basically do the opposite. So make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. So whenever you want to build a new habit, you can just ask yourself, how can I make it obvious? How can I make it attractive? How can I make it easy? And how can I make it satisfying? If you've ever asked yourself, why don't I do the things that I say I'm going to do? Why don't I just go to the gym or save up the money that I said I was going to? Why do I say something's important but never seem to make time for it? A lot of the time it's because you've not created the system for yourself where you've made the change you want to make obvious, attractive, easy, or satisfying. It could be either one of these 4 things, but as soon as one's missing, that's where you start to struggle to build new habits, or the habits that you're trying to build start falling apart. An example of how I used this framework to build one of my new habits was with journaling. So to make it obvious, I left my journal actually lying out so I could see it. To make it attractive, I had my highlighter and my pen already sat out next to it, and the book actually open at the page that I was going to use. So I love the feeling of having like a blank page and just making it all aesthetic and stuff. So to me, that made it attractive. To make it easy, I'd already thought of the prompts I was going to use. So I knew that I was going to write down 3 things I wanted to get done today, something I was thankful for, and a thought of the day. So that made it easy for me to know what I was actually going to write in my journal. And to make it satisfying, I don't know about you, but I just find like the feeling of having a plan already like laid out, like after I've journaled, I just find that really satisfying in itself. So when I'd actually finished journaling, that was when I got that satisfaction. I think I just invented a new word, satisfaction. So I just checked my sleep on my Fitbit app, and right, hear me out. I have been actually going to bed at 10 p.m. on the dot and then aiming to wake up at 6:45. So that gives me 8 hours and 45 minutes time in bed. So I was thinking that 45 minutes would be enough time for me to actually fall asleep. But looking at my app, let's just say I've not actually got 8 hours of sleep, which was the goal. However, the research does say that a good amount of sleep can be anywhere from 7 to 9 or more hours. So it's just so annoying because it's not really something that I can fix, because if I'm not tired, like I intentionally go to bed with enough time, but if I'm not tired then I can't fall asleep, so it doesn't really matter. I think some of it might also be to do because I have been getting up a bit earlier, so maybe it's just that initial shift in my sleep schedule that's making everything a bit iffy. But you know, it's just annoying. But since I've been learning something new every day, today I'm gonna try and figure out some things that can help me fall asleep faster. Not like medication or anything, but maybe like, I don't know, some herbal tea, or I don't know, but I'm gonna learn that. So I'm gonna go and research that now. It can be really frustrating when you're finding it hard to build a new habit, especially when you feel like some things are just out of your control. But in these situations, there are a couple of approaches that I personally find really helpful, because after all, the hardest part of committing to a new habit is just starting in the first place. So our 2 main goals are to get started and then get the habit to stick. The first approach I like to use, which is especially helpful for forming habits with a lot of different moving parts that play into them, like getting 8 hours of sleep, is actually take a few minutes to learn about it. Because if you know that a cold dark room with an evening routine without bright lights, caffeine or excessive stimuli is going to help you get better sleep, then it will make it a lot easier for you to build that habit by implementing those things than someone who had no idea that they would make any difference. The second approach I like to use is called the 2-minute rule. Essentially, you take the habit you want to build and condense it down to 2 minutes. So instead of committing to 10 minutes of mobility work every day straight off the bat, try starting with just 2 minutes a day. Or if you can't stick to that, try just 2 minutes 1 or 2 days a week. That way you've still made positive progress towards building the habit you wanted, but it's a lot more manageable, and all you have to do is add on a minute to your sessions over time until you're doing 10 minutes a day. So those two methods are great when you're starting new habits, but how do we actually get them to stick? The way I've found to be a really powerful tool is a technique called habit stacking. We all have daily habits that we already do without realizing specifically that they're actually habits. Things like brushing your teeth, or having a cup of tea or coffee in the morning, putting your shoes on before you leave the house, or brushing your hair. And habit stacking works by completing your new habit before or after one of your current habits. It doesn't just have to be 2 habits either. For example, I already had the habit of getting sunlight first thing in the morning when I went to open the blinds, so I then stacked the habits of drinking a glass of water first thing and taking my supplements on top of that. From my experience, habit stacking mainly helps me to actually do the habits that I want to build, as whenever I do the habit I already had, I'd be reminded of the new ones I was trying to add to my life. And another way to look at it is that the more habits you stack on top of each other, you start to build little routines for yourself. And you can almost look at a routine as a big habit made up of lots of teeny tiny little habits. So I managed all of the habits for the most part, which is really surprising because I honestly didn't think that there would be this much green. I thought there'd be a lot more red. But I also think the main reason that I was actually able to stay so consistent for the majority of the time was because I built those systems that helped me to actually do the thing. I just realized that I forgot to mark that I had done journaling on day 1, but there we go. It's complete now. If you've been wanting to make a change for a while, or you're struggling to build healthy habits like I was, this is your sign that systems is going to be your way forward. Because when you have a system that allows you to make even just a tiny bit of progress, some progress is better than no progress. And taking those little steps of progress every day is going to be what adds up to get you amazing results and habits that actually stick. I'd really love to know your main takeaway from this video, because I've honestly learned so much from just learning how to build the systems, then actually putting them into practice. It's made such a big difference on the way that I see and approach making new habits, and I hope it's done the same for you. This video is part of the self-improvement series here on my channel, so if you've enjoyed it, then you're definitely gonna enjoy this video next.